Hey everybody. So we get a lot of questions about building a home versus buying a home. And John and Meagan, agents with our team, they are in the process of building their third home in Tuscaloosa, and they're going to answer some of the most commonly asked questions we get. And if you have any additional questions, feel free to message us during the live, and we'll be happy to answer those as well. So the first question we get is building more expensive than buying?
All right. It really just depends on what you're looking for. We show houses all the time that somebody says, well, should I build or should I buy this existing house? And what's fun is you can go through a house and say, what's missing in this house that I wish I could build with? And then we can kind of determine what's the better route. Because, you're going to look through an existing house and it's not going to be everything you're going to want, on your list. But it might meet, a lot of your items that you're searching for. Building a house, it really just depends on what you want to add to the floor plan or to the steps as you kind of go through that. So, in a lot of cases, it can definitely be cheaper. You really just have to kind of be careful about what you're selecting through the process.
And I will say too, kind of with what all we have with Pinterest and all that stuff, you can kind of get. My experience has been I get on there and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is a great idea. I need to add this to my house.
Yes.
And then I'm deep, I'm like, oh, I can't afford that or something like that. So I will say there is the great thing about walking through a house and maybe you could change paint colors or something like that. But if you're building, kind of have that in mind, like, okay, I'm not going to be able to do all this stuff on Pinterest because I'll be in pretty deep. Just because that's where I find I get in trouble.
I can relate. Another question we get a lot is how long does it take, start to finish to build a house? And I know that how big the house is determines that, but like on average, what would you say?
Yeah, so one thing you've got to know about is are you kind of creating your floor plan with an architect or with your builder? Or are you kind of editing one from a house that's existing that you really like? And so from start to finish, that process actually takes, a little bit of time to kind of fine tune exactly your layout. But if you already had your layout in place and they start that day, for the most part, it's going to take, anywhere from 4 months to 6 months. But you may need, like a month like we had to kind of prep the floor plan with your architect and just kind of tweak it a little bit as you go along the way.
I will say too, it really depends on if you're doing like a house like this one that we currently live in. It had been built several times, the layout has, but John had a great idea to flip the staircase, and so that in itself took a bunch of time just to send back and get that changed and stuff added. That took a little bit of time, and then stuff that the builder hadn't done as often. It added a little bit of time, probably a couple months, I would say. So you have to, expect something in there with rain, the corona, what we're all going through right now. It has added a little bit of time, but really, if you've got a really good builder that stays on top of things, not too much. So.
Yeah, I think just on average, 6 months to build a house, but it's just how much prep work you need to have before they even start.
Very, very true.
Okay. And then this is probably our most asked question actually is how do we find a lot? How do we find a place to build a house?
That's right here. I think a lot of people think that, I'm just going to drive around until I find something. But I think good realtors are going to know what's on the market or what's coming on the market or a new plan for a subdivision or something like that not a lot of people know. And plus too, we're here to advise you on things that you need to have checked out before you just start building. There's a lot of prep work that goes into the lot that you choose. And so I would recommend highly that you have somebody that's going to take care of you along the way.
Yeah, I think what's helpful with having a realtor with that search is, a lot of times you don't see lots for sale signs right there, and that may be because somebody had bought it, as the neighborhood was being developed, and they didn't really plan to build on it for a couple of years, or maybe the lot's not buildable. at the moment. So it's really important to kind of know those. So I've helped tons of families over the years, find houses to build on where they originally kind of came to me and said, hey, we want to buy this lot. And we did our research and said, well, actually, that's not the best lot for you. You could buy one on this location because that one may not be as buildable and it needs a whole bunch of prep work, or there's a reason why that builder hasn't built on that lot yet. So just kind of knowing the ins and outs of that would be great, just to have somebody like us to kind of help you with the search.
Awesome. And then someone else asked, do we have to choose from a list of floor plans?
You don't have to. That's, you got architects that can build your dream house. Again, I'm going to say this because I found myself in this thing. You get on Pinterest, you start doing that stuff, and you add square footage that you didn't even know, whatever, and then you go to an architect, and they're like, well, it costs, a certain amount per square foot.
Right.
And you're like, oh my gosh, I have to redo everything in my mind that I was thinking. A lot of times builders do have a set of floor plans that they've used that are tried and true, that look great. And then you've got neighborhoods that require that they look a certain way. So they've had several that they use for that neighborhood. So I really think it depends on where you're building and the builder. Is that what you say?
Well, yeah, and can your floor plan fit on that lot?
Yeah, that too.
That's a key thing. So one of the houses that we built, it started out with the lot wasn't flat. It was kind of more at an angle, and we found that if we built a house that was more of an L-shaped, it would actually be a lot more affordable because you could kind of use the back part of the garage as your retaining wall.
Okay.
And it helped us tremendously. Had it been reversed, it would have been a lot more expensive. So when you get with your floor plan that you like, let's first look at it and say, all right, Mr. Builder that we're working with, can we build this floor plan on that lot? And he may say, absolutely, but let's reverse it, or let's tweak it to make it fit exactly how it needs to be as most affordable as possible.
Again, that's where you need to have a good builder, just because builders can walk a lot and they know, hey, this is what I would recommend for this lot. The topograph, is that what you call it?
Yeah.
Thing that they look at just to kind of figure out what kind of house could lay on that lot and different things like that. So things that just the random passerby wouldn't think of.
Right.
Yeah.
And as far as finding a builder locally, is that something y'all assist clients with? Have y'all done that before? Help them find the right builder?
All the time.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. And then how does financing work? A lot of our clients are used to getting a mortgage, but may never have looked for a loan for new construction.
Yeah, I mean, it varies. You can really kind of do it a couple ways. You can, buy the lot and do the financing from the very beginning on your side, or you can find a builder that says, I will do the whole process, I will build the house, and then you guys just do it at the end. And they do what's kind of like they have a construction loan, or you can kind of step in and do it yourself in the beginning. So it kind of varies depending on how that goes. I mean, you can.
Yeah, I will say too, a lot of times if you do that where the builder buys your lot and pays for everything up front until closing, you do have to be ready for a down payment, a pretty significant one, just because they want to make sure that you are in for the long haul, so that when you finish the house, you're not like, oh, I don't love it, and you move on. So be ready for that if there's something that you wanted to do like that. But the construction loan, yes, they will do that. We are doing one right now, and the builder takes draws from the bank, and every time they take a draw, it adds to your monthly payment. So it kind of, as close as they get to finishing the house, your payment's growing till it almost gets up to your mortgage, and then when you close on your house, you will pay what will be your mortgage payment.
Yeah, I think what's good too is you have a lender that kind of helps you with your finances and kind of says, hey, let's see what is better for you. What's a better fit? Getting your builder involved through the whole process, or you starting it, through the lender just directly. And so having those questions ready for your lender, I think they will help you make that a little easier for you.
Decision. Okay, and then is it cheaper to build a two-story home or a ranch home? Do you know which option is more expensive?
Yeah, so actually building a two-story home is less expensive because they can utilize that footing that, you know, that they're putting on the first floor, and they can just stack it. So when you spread it out and you're doing a long ranch home, you know, you've got more concrete.
Right.
You've got more of a longer square footage than you can stack it. So that kind of goes back to the, you know, the very beginning question of, you know, what kind of floor plan options do I have for my lot? Well, also look at, hey, does a first, you know, just kind of one level or a two level fit better for, you know, the cost and kind of the breakdown of that. But usually, you know, the taller the house is, it's a little bit cheaper than doing a long, wide ranch.
Okay.
The one thing too is a lot of people think that maybe a basement option would be cheaper, but you have to remember you're digging into ground, which it's not, you know, you can't get out there and dig, so you've got to have these big machines come out and dig. So that costs money, and then you've got more cement and all that stuff. So those type houses do tend to cost typically more.
Okay.
So again, that's where we can help you with that, deciding, oh, this lot's going to be a basement lot, or, you know, that kind of stuff, just to help you get the most for your money.
Okay, and then just in your experience in building y'all's third personal home, what are a few things that you didn't know going into it that you now know and you want other people to know going into the building process?
Can I?
Yeah, good.
I would say kind of like decide what are some of the most important things to you that you really want in your house. I would recommend keeping it pretty short, because you don't want to have a list of like 50 things that you want. And it's like finding the perfect man or perfect woman, you know, like, is it possible? And so with your house, I would say, like, for me, like this house is going to be our hopefully forever home. I always have to look at it when I say that. But just because I wanted to invest in like a bigger range this time,
Right.
which is your stove, for those, I didn't know what a range was for a while. But, you know, and so things like that, like typically, you don't have your fridge and all that stuff added into the appliance budget. So that's something I would check and ask your builder when you're doing like, okay, what will this cover? What will I get for this amount of money? Something else too would be like random things like laundry chutes, or where your pantry is going to be. Like thinking like, oh, I would really like my pantry to be right off my kitchen, is sometimes not a thing that you see in the plans or one. So I would just kind of decide what's most important to you, and then go to Pinterest for those things, if that makes sense. Instead of like, I've gone to Pinterest and been like, what are the best things to add in your house? And you can get a lot of stuff. Great ideas, but I mean, who can afford it? So I think that would be my take, is like start a list of 5 and kind of go from there.
Yeah, I think when you buy a new home, even if you're buying an existing new home or starting from scratch, you need to know what's included in the price.
Yeah.
You know, we sell a lot of new construction houses that are already built, but then the buyer would have to, you know, at some places might have to fill in the backyard with a fence, where they thought maybe from the beginning that was included. So it's just good to kind of have someone there along the side, which of course we can help with, but as you're building a house, it's always good to say, okay, here's the floor plan. We've made our decision on what we want to do. Here's the layout. Now, once we come up with a price, Mr. Builder, you know, explain to us where our budgets are. What's our budget for kitchen appliances? What's not included in the kitchen appliances? Is the refrigerator included? You know, those type things. So then you can kind of structure out your game plan. And if you're kind of one of those that loves to kind of be super organized through the process, then you'd say, all right, well, hey, just tell us real quick, what are our first things that we need to tackle? And so, like, for example, he might say, okay, you're going to meet your electrician, and you're going to need to figure out where your plugs are going to be. And, you know, some of those things are really important. Do you want to have a floor plug in your living room underneath the couch, or do you want to have it on the wall and run an extension cord underneath the rug? You know, those type things. So I think the best thing is to know what's coming first and be prepared for it, so that you can make a quick decision, and then also know what's included with your end price, where your budgets are, and that'll help a ton, I think, along the way.
Awesome. Well, thank y'all for answering those questions. And John, would you mind sharing your phone